Let's talk Auburn Tigers football, and that means Bryan Matthews is here once again from Rivals. Bryan, good to have you talking Auburn sports with us, especially, of course, football this time of year.
Yeah, there's been a little bit going on in Auburn here lately, so yeah, it's good to be in and talk a little bit about what's happening on the plains, right?
Yeah, we previewed the season, which just seemed like a couple of weeks ago, and it goes by fast.
Or maybe a couple of years ago, depending on your perspective. Yeah.
And we talked about the possibility of would Bryan Harsin last the season. Well, he didn't. So that's why we had you on. Wanted to find out exactly what happened. Was there do you think, from what you know, do you think there was a boiling point, like a specific game this season?
I don't think so. I think it was just an accumulation. I don't think all the people out there would know that Auburn's given up 40 points in 40 games, 40 more points in 4 games this year. That's the first time in 130 years of football.
Wow.
So that's history right there. It's historically bad defense, and then of course the offense have struggled all season, and it's been actually worse in his 20 months after. It's been worse than Gus Malzahn over his 20 months against Power 5 teams, his offense. So it's just been failures really on every level. And on top of what you're seeing on the field, the losses and the bad losses, the blowout losses, his recruiting has been in the dumpsters. I think he finished with the SEC's 9th best class last year, and I think Auburn is 11th as we speak right now. May have fallen down a spot. I know they lost one commitment after his firing, but yeah, it's been a rough ride with Bryan Harsin. It's really the worst era of Auburn football, even though it was a short one. You have to go back to 1948-50 to find a coach that had a worse record than Bryan Harsin.
Whose decision was it to hire Harsin?
That would be the former AD. And I don't know why my head is spinning right now. I've got so many names in it. I cannot think of his name at the moment.
We trust you.
Yeah. I just it'll come to me in just a second.
That's why he's the former AD, by the way.
That's right. But what happened was, during that coaching search, Auburn originally, some bigwigs at Auburn originally had planned to fire Gus and bring Kevin Steele and Ronnie Gardner and put them in charge. And people really just lost their mind over that. And then it kind of changed. And I think there was sort of a panic situation. And Alan Green, the former AD, of course, sort of went with a guy that he had met before at a coaching clinic or whatever. And, Bryan Harsin had really no connections to the SEC. I think he coached at Texas for a couple of years and Arkansas State, but no real connections to the SEC, and didn't really understand how to run a Power 5 program at this level in this conference on really any level, from the coaching to the game management to the recruiting. Wow. The one thing I will give him credit for is that the players continue to play hard, and he does. Him and his staff, and those players deserve credit for that. They've competed every snap. They have not quit on him or this program.
Okay, so new AD, who's going to have the authority to make that decision?
Yes. Auburn hired a new president in May, Chris Roberts. He let Alan Green go. They just hired John Cohen Monday, the same day they fired Bryan Harsin. So I think there was a little bit of a coincidence there. I think there was something to that.
Yeah.
I think they wanted the new AD to come in with a clean slate.
That's a good start.
And John Cohen from Mississippi State hired Joe Moorhead, if you'll remember,
yes,
as football coach. That didn't work out, but I think the positive there is he pulled the plug after 2 years, and then he went with the coach kind of out of the box, and it's worked out well for State. And so we'll see. I think John Cohen's going to be open to a lot of different ideas, but I think the biggest thing that Dr. Chris Roberts has tried to do as president, and now John Cohen is going to try to do, is get everybody on the same page, or at least the appearance of the same page, which is probably the most important thing, right? There's going to be a lot of opinions, but instead of having those guys, those members of the board of trustees and those very important people, going out there doing things on their own, let's get together, let's talk things out, and let's work together and try to make this hire and this process a little bit more focused and not so scattershot.
Is it fair when I hear some people say, not from Auburn, I hear some people say when they point to Auburn and things that have gone on with former coaches that, man, they don't get it right. They're always they're too involved. These are just things I'm picking up. Almost like
Right.
a meddling, like if it's an NFL team, it's like a meddling billionaire running the team kind of way that they're handling the coaching situation at Auburn every time, and they always fumble it. Is that fair?
Right. I think it's fair in some respects. It's unfair in others. I think that has been the case at Auburn at times in the past. It has been. But I also think it's unfair to say that hasn't been the case at a lot of schools and a lot of programs when things aren't going well. All right. Nobody talks about anybody meddling in Bruce Pearl's basketball program, right? Nobody talks about that Butch Thompson's program. So when things aren't going well at Auburn, that is part of the problem, right? Too many ducks on the pond, too many guys wanting to give their opinions, and with a big stack of money behind those opinions. So yeah, that has been a problem, but I don't think it's unique to Auburn at all. And I just think a lot of people tend to focus on that, and then because it's Auburn, that's something they're going to bring up over and over again. So it really gets piled on that that's the way it is at Auburn, when I think it has been at times, but I don't think it's that much different than other programs.
Okay, so let's talk about, spend the last few minutes of our time together talking about what's next. So this is the big one, and I know it's early. I get it. Is there a definite, yes, here's a guy that everybody's pointing to, and they've been pointing to this guy for weeks or for months, that if Harsin leaves, that's the guy that everybody wants? Is there a guy out there that's a consensus pick?
I don't think there's a perfect candidate, but I do think there's a consensus at the moment, so to speak. And I think Lane Kiffin is probably that guy.
Okay.
SEC coach, runs a great offense, whether it's a great passing offense when he had the wide receivers at Alabama or at Ole Miss now where he's got the running backs, right? He finds ways to win and gets the best out of his players. And he can recruit, whether it's going after 5 stars at Alabama or whether it's hitting the transfer portal at Ole Miss. He's shown different ways to get talent on campus. So I think that would be one guy. And of course, I think a lot of Auburn fans right now are obsessed with Deion Sanders and what he could possibly bring to the program. I'm a little skeptical on that,
That's a wild
Coach
card
Prime
pick. That's a wild card, yeah.
Yeah, Coach Prime doesn't have a lot of power. Well, he has no power experience. So that's one that could be a real boomer bust, try to, hire there and would go with a lot of risk. So we'll see. But I would say the favorite is Lane Kiffin. But I agree with you in that this thing is going to go in a lot of different directions. There's going to be a lot of different candidates that they speak to or speak to the representatives, I think, over the next 4 weeks.
Okay, so let me ask you about Lane, because, again, same thing, outside perspective. Why would Lane go to Auburn? He's at Mississippi. It's an SEC school. Yeah. What can he do at Mississippi that he could do at Auburn, or vice versa? So why would Lane leave Mississippi to go to Auburn?
Well, he could probably make a lot more money, number one. Number two, I think most reasonable people who aren't Auburn or Ole Miss people would look at the two programs and say Auburn has a higher ceiling.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be,
Is what it is.
Right. I'm not trying to put down Ole Miss, and maybe that can change in the next 10 or 20 years. But I think most reasonable people would say that Auburn has a higher ceiling. They won a national championship 12 years ago. They played for one 9 years ago. They've won, I don't know, is it 8 or 9 SEC championships? I don't think Ole Miss has played in the SEC championship game yet. I think they're one of the schools in the SEC that have not done that yet. So I think those would be some of the main reasons he would consider it. And I think Auburn also, looking at today, they really fell behind. I felt like in NIL, but they have worked hard to really build up a big nest egg of NIL for the next coach to come in and use to his advantage. So that's going to be in place for that guy too, which will also be a
okay. I'll throw some names at you then.
All right.
Really, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Matt Campbell is the only big name out there that anybody is going to talk about. Like if you're going to start with NFL or college, Power 5, bigger step up for Campbell, where would he go? He's got to be the guy. Does Matt Campbell make any sense?
In some senses, yes, but I have not heard his name brought up. But he may be one of those guys. One of the issues there, and it doesn't really matter about Matt Campbell, but Auburn hired Chiswick from Iowa State, excuse me, and they hired the president that just flamed out from Iowa State, Sue. So they may be like, hey,
no more
that's
Iowa
enough
State.
of Iowa State.
I can get that, sure.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, that's not fair to Matt Campbell, of course, but I have not heard him mentioned as a top target yet.
Matt Rule.
Yeah, of course, really built that Baylor program, brought it back up from the ashes, has now NFL experience. And another big plus with a guy like Matt Rule is he's available right now. Like he could come in and start recruiting and start doing things right away. So I do think Matt Rule will at least be a candidate and will be somebody Auburn speaks to. I don't know how good of a fit he'd be. I don't know enough about him and his recruiting because Auburn definitely needs somebody that's going to come in here and recruit.
Okay. Do you give them any chances on there being sort of like a Lanning type of coach, someone that is a great recruiter but no head coaching experience, somebody like that?
I think that is possible because I think John Cohen is open to those type of things. And if you look at the 4 best coaches in the country right now, in my opinion, Nick Saban, of course, was an NFL head coach, LSU, whatever. But Kirby Smart was a coordinator. Dabo Swinney was a running backs coach or wide receivers coach. I can't remember which, but he was a position coach. And Ryan Day was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. So of the 4 best coaches in the country right now, in my opinion, you can argue it, 3 of them were assistants before they got that job. So if he's not looking at assistants, he's making a mistake. And I'll throw one out there. I don't know if he's a candidate, but he's a guy that I have mentioned in other circles as a guy that should be a candidate, and that's Bryan Hartline at Ohio State. Right?
Top recruiter.
One of the best. Yep, one of the best recruiters at a great program. His brother is an analyst at Auburn right now.
I like that.
And Corey Dennis, who's the son of a longtime Auburn administrator, Steve Dennis, is Ohio State quarterback coach. So there are connections there too.
Got to always find those connections. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if Bryan Hartline is going to be a candidate at all. I'm throwing it out there myself, but he should be. And guys like him should
Absolutely. Be. Okay. And are there any, retreads, I guess we could use that word, any older coaches, experienced coaches that could possibly be in the running? Or do you think they're going to try to look for more of a younger, fresher face?
Well, I guess I think Kevin Steele will still be a candidate. I would be shocked if Auburn went very far with him, but I think he will still be a candidate because and he did a great job as coordinator here. He absolutely did. And if you go back and look at it, of the choice of Gus Malzahn, Bryan Harsin, or Kevin Steele would have Auburn in a much better position right now than the other 2 would have. So, but nobody else really that I can think of, but I'm sure there will be some. Some other names, I guess I should mention. Hugh Freeze, I think, at Liberty will be a candidate. Jeff Grimes is another coordinator. Baylor, former Auburn offensive line coach. Was here for the 2010 national championship team. So he'll be a candidate. I think Dave Aranda at Baylor now will be a candidate. And, of course, I mentioned Deion as another guy. So I think there's going to be twice as many, than we've talked about so far. They're going to pop up, in my opinion.
Fan base feeling at this point, is it anytime there's anger about a coach and it takes a while and then finally the coach is gone, there's usually a sense of, oh, thank goodness, now we can kind of move on. Is that the general feeling at Auburn right now, that the fans are just happy that they can now take that next step and get this thing going?
Yes, I think that's a lot of it. There's still some people that, have heard that national narrative about Auburn boosters and meddling. They think Harsin didn't get a fair shot. There's still those people, but I think what you're going to see in 10 more days when Texas A&M comes to Jordan-Hare Stadium for a night game, you're going to see that place absolutely go bonkers in support of Cadillac Williams. They appointed Cadillac as an interim coach, former Auburn, legend, right? Current Auburn running backs coach was elevated, and I think people are going to really turn out to support him in the program now. Auburn fans are very, very loyal. They love the program. They love the coaches. They love the players, and they are going to really make a statement, I think, in 10 more days when Texas A&M comes to town. So that'll be fun to watch. It'll be a night game. I think it's on SEC Network or ESPN. I'm not sure which, but I think people naturally be surprised what Jordan-Hare Stadium is like.
And that means that we shouldn't rule Cadillac Williams out completely, even though he's a long shot?
Yeah, I think that's the exact way to say it. If he was to go 4-0 as an interim coach and beat Alabama and lose for the first time since 2010, it would be impossible not to, right? Probably not going to happen if we're being realistic here. And but yeah, he will certainly be considered and certainly deserves that consideration. Absolutely.
Before I let you go, Bryan, what can Cadillac Williams do? Is there anything he can do? Is it health wise? I know the quarterback position has just been a mess, especially with the injuries to Finley. Anything at all that you think it's possible that they could do to change things for the better in just such a short period of time?
I think they were still rotating offensive linemen in the last game. That's got to stop. You got to pick your 5 and go with it. So I think that's one thing they can change. They've been playing a lot of wide receivers. They've got some good young guys. I think it's time to let those guys get more snaps and be more of a focal point of the offense. That can change. But there's not a lot of personnel things you can do with this team. It's really hurting as far as depth of talent there. But I think the biggest thing that's going to change is just the attitude of this team. I think when you take away a guy who was losing at the rate that Bryan Harsin was doing, and you put in a guy like Cadillac who has won everywhere and at every level he's been at, things are going to change. I just feel that way. I can't put my finger on exactly what it's going to be, but yeah, I would expect a response from this team. May not win at Mississippi State this weekend because that's a tough matchup, I think, and it's only a few days, but I would definitely expect a response by the Texas A&M game.
Who's going to be the quarterback? Is it Ashford? Is it Finley? Or how's that shaking out?
I think it'll still be Ashford. If you watched Auburn's loss to was it Arkansas? Yeah, Arkansas last week. I thought after a slow start, he really performed pretty well. I think that's one of the first games he's played at Auburn where he didn't turn the ball over, fumble or interception, which I think is a big step forward for him. So I'd be surprised if they went in another direction.
All right, last question. Quarterback. Is the 2023 starting quarterback for Auburn on this team?
If you had asked me that a week ago, I said no freaking way. But if Robbie Ashford keeps improving at the rate he improved, and it's just one game, so you can't really say it's happened yet. But if he keeps doing that, I mean, yeah, it could be. But I think if I'm looking back on the whole season and evaluating all 8 games, no, they're going to have to go out. That's going to be one of the priorities. They have to hit the portal, and they've got to get a quarterback. They've got to entirely rebuild the offensive line. The defensive line has to be rebuilt because most of the top players are all going to be going, whether they're seniors or going to the draft. So it is going to be a rebuilding project. I would say the 2023 roster as it stands right now is going to be the worst it's been at Auburn in my lifetime. And if not, it's going to be very comparable to 1999 when Tommy Tuberville took over for Terry Bowden.
Well, there's only good things ahead, I guess, right? That's the way you got to look at it.
Right.
Can't get any worse. Right? Yeah, that old mantra. And I'm sure that's the case. And who knows? Whoever that coach is, that coach might bring, sort of like Lincoln Riley, might bring his quarterback with him, depending on who that coach is.
Right.
So we'll keep an eye on that.
Things can change quickly now in the transfer portal
area. And how's recruiting? Like you said, not going well. So that obviously has to change. And is there anything that could be done for this next class?
I believe so. I do. I've seen it, not just Auburn, but other programs. You get a new coach in, you sort of get that recruiting bump, especially at a program like Auburn. Hey, we're down, come in, be a part of the rebuilding. We've got opportunities for you to play right away. We're going to do all these great things. I'm the new coach. Everything's going to be terrific, right? So, yeah, I think the right coach can do that. Bryan Harsin never had that, for whatever reason. He never had that. But I think the right hire can give them a bump. And, it's not just recruiting now, it's talent acquisition, and that's the portal. Yep. So, it opens up, I think, December 4th. So that's going to make, the Iron Bowl's there at the end of November. I think it's the 26th, somewhere in there, 24, something like that. So there's a little window. You got to get the coach hired, and that coach has got to hit the ground running to prepare for that portal being open, because that's where Auburn can really help itself.
So you think the head coach will be named by the end of the month?
Yeah, I do. Okay. Yes. No guarantees, but I think because they've got 4 weeks to work on it, they've got a chance to get it done as soon as that Iron Bowl ends. I mean, if they take care of business, they can get it done.
Bryan, are you still doing that weekly show at auburnsports.com?
Yeah, we do our rundown podcast every Tuesday. And then, of course, I appear on your show and a lot of other radio shows across the South during the week.
I appreciate it. Again, I know you're real busy. I'm sure you're a wanted man with everything going on. So thanks for taking your time out, as always, Bryan. And I look forward to talking to you again at some point, sometime maybe when we find out who the next coach is, something like that.
Yeah, maybe in about 4 more weeks or so. I appreciate you having me,
You
Greg.
got it, Bryan. Thank you.